Hi everyone, welcome to our live stream this evening. Lovely to see you all. My name is Zoe, I'm Programme Manager here at NASS, and I'm going to be running this live chat with Max and Emma, which I'm really excited about. It's something we've not covered much with NASS, so it'll be a really interesting conversation. So hi to Max and Emma, how are you both?
Good, thank you. How are you doing?
Very well, thanks for having us.
Good, yeah, thanks for coming on. So tonight we're going to be chatting all about university life with Axial SpA. And I mean, it's quite a few years since I was at uni, and I only got Axial SpA while I was studying. So that's why we brought in Max and Emma, who have much more recent experiences or current experiences. So it'll be great to explore this topic. But please do let us know if you're joining us live. Get involved in the comments, share your experiences, add your questions. It'll be great to get the conversation going. And we'll have time after our chat to have a bit of a Q&A at the end as well. So if you're looking for any advice or support, please do pop your questions and comments in the chat there. So for anyone who's watching live, we will have the recording staying on our YouTube channel and across social media as well. So you can come back, watch back anytime. And hi to anyone who's watching on catch up as well. Please do send any questions over to us. So before we get started, I think it'd be great if you both tell us a little bit about yourselves, about sort of where you're at with university life and with your condition as well. So Max, I'll come to you first.
Hi, my name's Max. I'm 28. I'm post-university now, a few years as well. I did an undergrad followed by 2 postgrads, law conversion and then the bar. And I was diagnosed just before I went to university. So I was officially diagnosed when I was 17. So my university experience very much coincided as well with learning how to deal with AS at the same time, which was a little bit formative. And I think it kind of shaped not just university life in terms of how to communicate and deal with it, but kind of postgraduate, early adult, young adult life as well, and kind of the coping mechanisms and realities of working with it, whether it's university coursework or your actual work. There's a lot of kind of shared issues essentially and kind of shared tips and tricks between the two. But that's a little bit about me. I was symptoms from 12-ish, give or take, and it's been a while. I think over half my life now with AS. So yeah, it's been an interesting journey.
So hi everyone, I'm Emma. I'm 21, still in university, so a bit of a different perspective. I'm in second year now. I technically should be graduating, but I took a gap year, took a year out. I mean, I got diagnosed at 18, so I think it was the end of my A levels. That wasn't actually the reason I did take a gap year, but I think probably looking back at it now, that's probably the underlying reason I took a gap year, just to sort some things out, not rush straight into university, really look after myself. So yeah, I got diagnosed 3 years ago, but I've had symptoms since I was about 11 or 12 because I was a competitive runner and I kept getting loads of issues, which was really confusing, being that young and not really knowing what was going on. And so I went to, hospital a lot, and they just said I had bad posture and I was on my phone too much, how it is. And then at 18, they're finally like, yeah, okay, you have AS. And I was like, I kind of knew it because my mom has AS and she used to be a rheumatology consultant. So she would go with me and she would be like, no, I think she has this. And they'll be like, no, you're wrong. So yeah, it took a while to get there, but got there in the end.
I'm glad you finally got there. Sorry to hear it was such a challenge, even with your mum's experiences as well.
Yeah.
So it'd be great to hear from you both, sort of whether your Axial SpA affected kind of what course you chose to study, what university you chose to go to, just any kind of advice you've got for people who might be in that situation of kind of already having the condition and looking at what they're wanting to do. So Emma, if I come to you first for that.
Yeah, so I mean, course-wise at university, wasn't really affected at all by my AS, really. I mean, I only did this course, actually got rejected from other courses. So yeah, really not to do with my AS, but location-wise, I chose a place that wasn't too far from home if I needed to go home. Or, it was, my university is right by a really, really good hospital. So I made sure that, it had that, and I didn't want to go somewhere too remote that didn't have access to really good, facilities. And I mean, I guess in some ways my course was sort of affected by my AS because I didn't want it to make it like too rigorous. You know, I wanted to be able to have a balance. Don't want to do like engineering or something like medicine, which really wouldn't give me much of a balance, because I think if I did that, I probably wouldn't last and probably would drop out, because I don't think that's sustainable given, you know, my condition and, you know, what I need to sustain myself, really. Yeah, I think that's really it. I also wanted to go somewhere that, you know, I know people had gone there in the sense that I know it has good support. I wanted to make, like, I didn't want to go to a place that was quite, you know, new to me, just because, you know, if it didn't have that support, it had not a bad reputation, but it didn't have that like reinforcement that it could help me, that I feel like that would worry me a bit. Yeah. Say that.
Yeah, go ahead, Max.
I think I almost went the opposite direction with that all, and I kind of took this as my opportunity to really try and see what I could get on with. Not because I think I necessarily felt as, I didn't feel particularly comfortable with it, but I chose not to stay in the UK. I didn't, you know, my course, I knew I was always going to do humanities. I hadn't, you know, I didn't do the A levels for a STEM subject. So I always knew I was going to be in humanities. I think it might have influenced the career direction that I went into, but not so much my university course selection. I ended up doing my undergrad in the Netherlands, which probably introduced certain challenges that I wouldn't have necessarily have faced if I had stayed in the UK. You know, flying back for hospital appointments and the issues of getting medication abroad and flying with it all. And this was back when Humira had just come onto the NHS. I think it was 10 years ago. It was Humira had just been introduced. So there were all these kind of red tapes, and no one really knew how to, if you could travel with it, how you're supposed to travel with it, you know, how long it could be out of refrigeration. There were a lot of challenges that I had made an already challenging existence more challenging. But for me, I think I viewed that as, you know, I really want to go have this experience, and I'm going to try and find the way to do it, which wasn't easy. And I don't know if I would recommend that entirely for everyone. I think it really depends on your support network and where you drive or where you derive support from. I had a lot of faith in my parents at the time, and still do. They're still extremely supportive, but I knew that if something had gone wrong, they would have been there to kind of catch me in that fall, even if I was abroad. But I also kind of like ran the numbers, and for me, studying in the Netherlands was almost it would be the same journey time as me studying in, you know, Edinburgh. So it wasn't, you know, there was a lot of rationale that I could justify this foreign experience in terms of timing. So it wasn't too bad in that sense. I think it seemed more scary than it was, but much like you, I took a gap year as well. But I very consciously took the gap year to try and figure out, you know, my own limits, how to live with it. I took some time living abroad as well to try and understand, you know, different medical systems, how I could travel with my Humira and my medication, and what I needed to do to look after myself before I threw myself into that environment, you know, kind of fully. But yes, I think I was quite fortunate in the sense that I didn't let it dictate me too much in terms of my university choice. I also, much like you, I had one offer and I took it. So it's just like, I was so sick in my A-level year, and they offered me an unconditional offer, and I was just like, fantastic. I was like, it took so much. I think that was the most fortunate thing that happened, is that it took so much stress off my final A-level year, because I was so sick and I didn't want to take a year out. But so I knew that I could always justify my A-level grades later on with job apps or the bar course or whatever. But, you know, the peace of mind knowing that as long as I could make it through my A-levels, I would have that spot secured, took so much pressure off in terms of my final A-levels, which are stressful enough for anyone. But if you're in and out of hospital, you're sick, you're just there thinking, the idea of sitting an exam right now is the last thing I want to be doing. And I think I was really, really lucky. So a lot of foreign universities do that, so it might be worth looking into. If you have AS, you get your unconditional offer.
Yeah, because that's really interesting, because like throughout sixth form, before I actually got my diagnosis, but I kind of knew something wasn't right, but like didn't really think about it that much, because, you know, A-levels just make you think about it all the time. I really wanted to study abroad, like do my undergrad abroad. Like I really, really want to do it. But I think in the back of my mind, I had this weird thing of like, you know, if you do feel unwell, then, you know, I didn't know it was AS at that point, well, sort of did, like, I was a bit anxious, and they'll see like flying and all those things. But yeah, I'm thinking of maybe doing a master's abroad. I mean, that is only 1 year, obviously, so it's not,
Yeah.
But I think at this point I have built up confidence and knowledge that I probably would be able to do that.
I think it's developing the toolkit for those things as well. It's like knowing, regardless of where you are, how you need to handle your AS, regardless, you know, whether it's at home or somewhere else. Somewhere, you know, if it's not at home, the same things will always essentially apply. You know, do you have something that you need to fall back on in terms of either medication or a certain type of exercise or physios or whatever? You know, you can find physios, you can do, you know, go for a swim. Most places have a swimming pool. So it's the idea of developing your toolkit to allow you to live, regardless of whether it's university or anywhere else, a life that you want to lead. And I think once you start taking steps to building it, you'll realize that you can actually do much more within your own capabilities. Like, it doesn't have to be the limiting factor. It will be a factor to consider always, unfortunately. But I think the confidence will come with it with time. Yeah, I think.
Yeah, no, 100%. I mean, like 2 years ago, when I was 19, like I probably wouldn't say I would study abroad. But now, like, I mean, if I can do uni in the UK, like there isn't really too much difference, like, to going, like, you know, in another country. Because one of the universities I did want to go to was Edinburgh, but I live in Cornwall. So technically, if I would have gone there, it would have been like going abroad anyways.
It's probably longer from Cornwall to Edinburgh by car than it would be to fly to the Netherlands or Germany. Like,
Definitely.
that's the reality of it, unfortunately. And it's just weird. It's it's in the UK, it's still close to home. No, it's not. It's so far away. Yeah,
definitely.
That's some really great insights, and I like how you've both had like different sort of approaches to uni, different locations, everything, and yet there's still a lot of crossover in that as well. It would be great to hear in terms of kind of when you were looking at starting uni, if there were any sort of adjustments or accommodations you looked into from the institution themselves, like if there was any support that made that transition a bit easier. I don't know who wants to take that first.
I'll go. Yeah, so before, because I had that year out, like it gave me time to, like, it wasn't like a rushed decision of like, oh, got my A-level grades and I'm starting uni in a month. Like, I had a while to really think about, you know, things. And so I contacted the uni and got a disability access plan, or a DAP, sorted out. I think that was in like the May before I joined. So that basically, like, I got an appointment, went to the university, sat down with someone, and they're like, okay, what do you need to tell us? What, like, you know, what do you need accommodating for? Like, so I basically explained everything, all the support I needed, so that when I got there in September, like, you know, everything was covered. I didn't have to worry about like talking to people, like, you know, asking to meet my professor or something and say this, but then I have to do that. All my professors, you know, it just complicated, you know, by doing that. So that was really, really, really helpful. So that means basically now if I'm having a flare up, I'm feeling bad or blah, blah, I can get my extensions automatically approved every time, basically, which is so useful. I used it a couple months ago. And like, you know, if I have to miss a compulsory lecture or, you know, something like that, like they'll understand and it's put in the works. And obviously, because they have so many students, like my lectures, like they have like 300 people in or something. So if I don't really have that in place, they're not really going to look at my email about, sorry, I couldn't make it, I haven't, you know, something on. They don't really very care. But if the uni's saying it, you know, it gives me like, you know, reason to like get away with it almost, you know, because if it's coming from me, they probably won't listen to me. You know, it's too many people.
I imagine it takes a bit of the stress off as well, because it's sometimes when you're feeling rubbish, the last thing you want to do is like talk about it or explain it to someone. So to be able to just say, this has happened, you know, let them know, you know, that it takes it out of your hands as well, which is nice when you're not feeling at your best.
Yeah, and like, because I think it covers every year I'm here, so it's perfect. You know, it's very simple. Like, it was really easy to do. I think I just emailed like someone at uni and just got it set up straight away. And I think obviously I had to send in proof of stuff, but it wasn't complicated. But I don't think many people know about it, and I don't know if it's universal or if it's like just a thing my uni does. So that's something I would check, definitely, because I know my uni's good at it, but I don't know if it's like that everywhere.
I think the pastoral care side of things kind of kicks in with it. I had my seminar system in the Netherlands was a bit different. Our classes were really small, so we were generally kind of like 15-ish people per class. So it's a bit more intense, but it's also way more noticeable if you're not there. But the flip side of that is that it allowed me to kind of develop a relationship with my individual tutors. So I would have a conversation with my tutor, maybe not at the first lesson that we would have together, but very early on, I would just ask if I could grab them after class and just explain. Because there's one thing when they get these official looking emails from the university notifying them that a student has an exemption, etc. But I think having the human element of it and just talking to them, person to person goes a really long way. And I found that you'd almost get a little bit more leeway as a result of that, because it's not always just about exam periods or coursework deadlines. It's sometimes about, you've turned up to class, but you're just having an off day, and you're not feeling 100%, but you're not feeling so bad that you're not getting out the house. And those days still matter. Your education's still ticking along when you're there. And it's just having a little bit of understanding on a human level as to what's going on. And I found almost the importance of that probably increased as you get further into your education. So on the law conversion and then on the bar course, it was probably even more important to have those in place, because your individual tutors have so much sway in terms of, your assessments and deadlines, etc. And obviously you're still filing with the course provider, your official documentation and whatever. But it's people want to be helpful is the general thing that I learned at university, whether it's your tutors or it's your dorm person who, I don't know how it works in the UK, to be perfectly honest, but in the Netherlands, there was always one person that was living in the dorms that wasn't a student, like a first year student. And, people want to look after you and they want to help. And it's, takes a little bit of vulnerability, which sucks in terms of you have to confront someone and say that you're not going to feel particularly well and this is going to happen and you're suffering with X, Y, Z. But I think it goes a long way to making your life fundamentally easier in the long term. So it's something that I would advise. But yeah, use it. It's one of the few genuine perks of being, having a condition like this at university. And you might as well utilize it. So, you don't get anything else for free in life. Yeah.
This is so interesting because it seems like we're having very opposite experiences about not experiences, but
your approach to it as well. I think it's just, you play the card that you're dealt. I think it would be, my experiences would have been very different if my courses were as large as yours. But the fact that, I think in my whole cohort, we only had 105 students in my whole cohort. So even if we had a fully attended lecture, it was just over 100 people. Your lectures, your lecturers and professors very personally. And it was the same on the bar course. We had 12 students per tutor. So you get to know them very personally. You end up knowing them on a first name basis. So it's kind of as a result of your environment. If you have the ability to be more personal with someone, I think that's generally a better way to go with things like this. Like, you can communicate and you build a relationship. If you're just a number in a very large hall, you need to play the official game and have everything kind of really lined up and in place so that you can always rely upon it later on. But I think it's kind of, you have to make a judgment call as to what's going to be best for you in those situations. So yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's good to hear such different.
I did actually have to file, and I did actually have to file at one point and say that was because they were asking whether I was disabled under the Disability Act, Disability and Equality Act, because it's a very broad definition. So they did ask me to get some proof. They wouldn't take it at face value, so just be aware of that sometimes. And when they do challenge you on it, they're not challenging you on the fact that they think that you're lying, but they obviously need to cover themselves in terms of providing these kind of adjustment periods, etc. So I think the other thing is not to it can be quite intrusive when people are asking you for your medical history or a letter saying prove, show us that you're sick. And And I think especially for younger people, it feels like you've had to constantly justify the fact that you're sick for so long. And then you go to another place and they're supposed to be helping you and they're still asking you to justify your illness. So I would just be aware that they're trying to do it because they want to help you, not because they're challenging you and you don't look sick, therefore we need a letter from you, from your doctor or something. It's just, to everyone's benefit and security, I think, at the end of the day.
Absolutely. And we'd always encourage people to get in contact with us here at NASS as well on the helpline if you weren't sure whether you're covered by the Equality Act, because most people with Axial SpA are with the UK Equality Act. But yeah, also if you're looking at in terms of like any information or sort of documentation you can give to kind of prove your condition, you can get that from your doctor. But also we can always chat about what sort of documentation would be helpful as well. So would recommend getting in contact with us. I'll recommend as well, anybody watching, do pop your questions in the comments. I'll put a little reminder on the screen as well. We're happy to answer any in the chat. I
think there are some on the Instagram, but I don't know if they're appearing on the StreamYard. Because I've got the stream up on my phone.
I can't see them on StreamYard, so I think maybe in the Q&A it'd be great if you... Thank you, because we are having some technical hitches this evening. So yeah, that's great. I'll help you. I'll get your help on answering those shortly, Max. Brilliant. So I think we've touched on it a little bit. Emma, you mentioned the fact that you went to a university close to a really good hospital for Axial SpA. So it'd be great to hear kind of how you both approached managing your care while away and studying. So if you want to go first, Emma.
Yeah, I mean, so yeah, for me, I was quite lucky that I had a really good hospital so close to me, which actually was a coincidence. It's actually like the National Centre for Rheumatology, so that's very lucky. But yeah, so I think, I'm trying to remember what I did. I think I looked into it before I moved here again. Yeah, I did actually, I remember, because the transfer time from my local hospital to this one was like 8 months. It was so long, and I think it took about 8 months, which, is what it is. Just have to plan ahead. If you don't, unlucky. It just makes things a bit more tricky. But yeah, so I planned ahead and tried to get transferred there, and then once I did, it was fine, really. The only thing I did have to get sorted out is it's kind of hard to get there without a car, and my university is it's kind of tricky to have a car in first year. So I had to apply for a permit, but you need medical grounds, so I had to get that approved via the doctors. So I had to go via GP to get approved to get a car permit. Otherwise you can't park. So I could go there to my appointments, because otherwise the only other option that's quite viable was Ubers, but that was like £10 to £15 each time, and that just wasn't going to work, really. So that's one thing I did have to get sorted out. But once I got that all sorted out, it literally fine. I mean, because of my DAP, if I did have to miss something, like, it's fine, like, they understood, and I would just go. And yeah, they've been really good. I mean, I haven't actually, because I'm not a part of my like old hospital anymore, I haven't actually had to go in the summer anyways, I think, which is quite lucky. And luckily, like, where I live at home isn't too far from my uni place. If I do need to come in the summer, like, it can be done, which is, again, one reason why I chose to go close to home if I do have to come in the summer. But then I'll just try and like arrange my appointments for when I'm at uni if it's not urgent. But yeah, I do have to sometimes rearrange like uni work and stuff. But for me, like, I prioritize my health, so I really I don't find that issue. And like, my close friends all know if I have to go and do something. Yeah, it's pretty all right for me. I'm not gonna lie, so far, touch wood.
I like that as well, that you prioritize your health, because I suppose without doing that, then your uni work and your social life and everything is all going to suffer for it anyway. So it kind of makes sense to kind of think, no, that's got to come first in order to let you do the other things as well. That's really sensible.
Yeah, I mean, it took a while to really get to that mindset. Like, I miss out sometimes, because I remember I went to hospital like in the evening, and then I was missing out on, you know, people going out and stuff, which, you know, isn't fun for first year uni student. You don't really want to do that. But, you know, looking back at it, like it is what I, you know, had to do it. And I think if I didn't do it, it'd be a stupid thing to do, prioritizing going out as a first year, you know, over my long-term health. So you just have to get over whatever FOMO you're feeling about not going out, really, and just get on with it. Yeah.
Definitely. How about you, Max?
Teaches you compromise very quickly, unfortunately. And I think it means that you end up growing up really, really, really quickly. And you get very good at making tough choices, unfortunately, which, as its pros and cons, it makes certain things easier in life, but it also makes you feel like you're living a life that's almost a little bit too old for you. But in terms of what was the question again? Hospital experience. Sorry, it's just like
yeah, like navigating your care, especially for being abroad.
I got really lucky. I mean, I say that after having been bounced around the NHS like at football for months and months and months on end. But I ended up at a fantastic hospital in Oxford, who have been my primary caretakers now for the last decade, which is insane. I don't plan on changing it. And I think even when I went to, so my experience going abroad is that when I lived in the Netherlands, I went to my GP. I had to register with a GP, obviously, when I was there. And I let my GP there know that I had a pre-existing health condition with a particular hospital or a particular condition, and that was being dealt with by a hospital in the United Kingdom. And they, granted, this was pre-Brexit. I do have to preface this. I don't know how it would work now. I'm sure it would be much the same. But I essentially put them in contact with each other. And for example, I had to have blood tests done regularly because I was on methotrexate. So my GP's clinic in the Netherlands would do my blood tests, and they would send the results to my clinician in the UK, and they would update my NHS records with the blood test from the Netherlands. And they were in constant communication with each other about certain things, whether it be blood test results or just general condition. So I got really, really lucky with that. It did take a lot of kind of forcing hands on the NHS a little bit. You know, it's not the normal way that they do things, and, you know, we're making an exception here for you. But I think that you have to be really stern with them, because they're not going to give you things just because you want them. You kind of really need to push them that it's in your interest as well as theirs for it to be happening. And now for me, I have a yearly checkup now. I'm at the stage where it's kind of, they're classifying it as basically having gone into remission now. So I only need to go back every year to have a checkup with them. And it's really easy, and I've been really fortunate, but I have a fantastic doctor there who's done everything possible to make my life as easy as possible. And really explored the options in terms of how to travel abroad with my medication. And he even changed the general dosage with Humira is kind of, they will drop like 4 injections off at a time or something, which is essentially a 2.5 month supply. But, you know, he helped me essentially get a 5-month supply delivered at one time, because he knew that I'd go abroad for term and then I'd be back in the UK after term time. So you really made sure to take all of these things to make my life as a 18, 19, 20-year-old abroad as easy as possible within the powers that he had. And I think I will be forever grateful to him for that, because he made it as easy as possible for me to go experience that. And, you know, and just having good communication. I'm very lucky. I can email him and he normally responds within 24 hours. So, which is mad. looking at the state of the NHS, sometimes it's impressive. But yeah, I've been really, really lucky there. But it's just about, as you said, like, you have to find your doctors and trust them, and kind of really instill a lot of faith that they're trying to do everything that they can to help you. And if they're not, then you need to be strong enough to say that it's not for you and you need to find someone else, which sucks. But it does happen, unfortunately. It's a relationship, not, you know, you're not a customer. So yeah.
It's funny you say that, because because I've had issues like with my GP being in a different county as my hospital. I can't imagine, in a different country.
Oh no, they're rubbish. No, I had the exact same issue. My GP's in Bucks, but my hospital's in Oxfordshire, and they don't talk to each other.
No, that's the thing.
GP in the Netherlands spoke to the one in Oxfordshire absolutely fine.
That's so weird.
Yeah, and they speak different languages. I know, it's mad. It's like
It's
the
so-
like the GPs on the NHS just really.
I thought it was a national thing. I didn't think things were like county based. Because
It's
it
mad.
created real problems for me. Like I literally, so obviously do blood tests. Because I forgot to say, my first injection, I'm on adalimumab, was the week before I moved to uni. So that was interesting. But so then obviously I moved out of my county when I was on it. I didn't realise there was a county issue. And so my blood tests weren't going through. And they're like, we're threatened to like pull you off your, this. And I was like, what, why? And they're like, oh, so I had to physically contact the two, like it was just confusing.
Yes.
And I had to email them, get them from one place, email to another. And then they'd be like, okay, we'll get back to you in like some business days. And I was like, okay, I might be put off my medication by then.
Yeah, I think I learned really early on, because I had the issue as well when they moved me to a hospital in Oxfordshire, that they hadn't electronically filed all of my things. So I have paper copies of everything. Like I would literally turn up to hospital with bundles of all of my paper files. And the only way that I navigated the blood testing was that I would always ask for the hard copy of a paper copy of the results to be sent to my home address, and I would go drop it off at my GP, because it's the only way that I trusted that they actually got the results. Because otherwise I knew the amounts of times where I would go up to pick up my methotrexate, for example, and they would refuse to fill the script because the blood test hadn't been filed. And then I would have this 2-week wait period where you wait. It just wasn't worth the headache. I would rather take the half an hour out of my day to go drop it off in person and know that they have it, rather than trust as bad as this sounds, like you just can't trust it fully. Like you still have to be as proactive as possible, because ultimately the consequence is your health. So, and it's exhausting. And sometimes it's about being able to rely on your parents or your friends or whatever to go pick stuff up. And it sucks that it gets to that stage, but it is like that, unfortunately. But that would be my top tip, is just ask for paper copies of everything. Just ask them, they have to send it to you. So just ask them to send you a copy, and then just have your own versions of it. And you can always email it to your GP, even if you can't go drop it off. But that would be a top tip. Yes.
Yeah, great. I've got all of mine.
Yeah. In terms of long term. Yeah. Yeah, I've got a big folder.
I've got 3 files now. It's just mad.
That's the problem with a condition that starts when you're young, isn't it? I mean, it's been so helpful and so interesting already, but I'd really love to get your thoughts on some kind of practical ways that you help manage your symptoms while you were studying as well. So I know particularly pain levels and fatigue seem to be the biggest things that really impact us, particularly when studying and when away from home. So it'd be great to get your thoughts on any advice you have, really. I don't know who wants to go first.
Yeah, I mean, this is, applies to a lot of things outside this condition as well, but like really pace yourself. Like I know people say that, but literally I can't express it enough. Like especially in first year, when things are just crazy, like you literally don't have any routine, that's just how it is. You really you have to think of yourself as, I know it's not really a nice way of saying it, but like not a normal first year student. Like you have to view your, like how you do things, don't compare them to the rest of first year. Like, like you have to stay in your own path and really like judge whether it's something good to do, like according to yourself, not according to what first year students should do, because it's very different. Like, so I, didn't necessarily do that much in first year, and I got so many infections. I ended up in hospital so many times. I got my own like suite. Like I stayed there overnight. Like I'd be woken up every like 3 hours to get like a drip, because I would just get like ill, but like how first year students would be. But then obviously, because my injections, like it would just blow out of proportion to the point where I was going to get a tonsillectomy, because I kept on getting all this stuff. So I'd really say don't compare yourself and don't beat yourself up. Pace yourself, and if it helps, write what, like, when you're feeling, a bit low, if there's something you can refer to that you wrote when you're like feeling okay, to like how you can make yourself feel better, if that makes sense. Like, because I know how easy it is to feel like really like irrational when just, you know, all over the place when you're feeling down and not feeling yourself. Like if you have something you can refer to remind yourself that this is what, you know what I mean, that you're okay and what you normally would do, and, you know, like something to help you get through it. And yeah, it's more, I feel like it's more of the mental side in first year or even university in general. Like physically, like, you know, you've got what you should do, like stretches and make sure you're keeping active and, you know, all that stuff. But it's just, I feel like it is a massive, massive challenge. You know, you're in this new place of people who won't necessarily understand you, but you don't expect them to, which is the hard bit. And you don't want to put this burden on them. And it's just like keeping yourself strong and doing whatever you can to keep strong, you know, and you'll get through it and it'll be fine. And that you're not missing out. Like there's no point making yourself feel worse just to get yourself involved in experiences that are, you know, that may be fun, yeah, but that's not really gonna help if you're feeling really, really low and stuff.
Yeah. I always found that you need like two things with AS. You need the first thing being a physical activity that you get to derive joy from. So whether that's you enjoy going swimming or enjoy walking or hiking, or I don't know, depending on, you know, your level of AS, what you can do, what sport you can do. And then you need something that mentally you can do for those days that you can't do the physical thing. So you still feel like you're leading the life that you want to be leading. Because I think the main issue that is not, I mean, this applies to university, but I suppose it applies just generally to AS, is this loss of feeling of control. Like you don't get to choose when you're sick, and you don't get to choose, you know, the good days and the bad days. And I always found that having one of each allows you to feel more in control of yourself when your health is trying to take control. So for me, I enjoy playing the piano when I'm not feeling great and I can't go for a run or a swim or whatever, because I know I can sit down and play the piano. Like my hands are going to be fine. And it's kind of the mental win for me. So I don't feel like I've lost a part of myself that particular day. And I think that's kind of one of my bigger top tips for uni, is just find the things that you can do, or regardless of whether you're feeling like you need to get out and about or not. And I think, unfortunately, sometimes it's going to sound a bit brutal, but sometimes it really is about doing it even if you don't feel like you can do it. And I know that it can lead to a slightly toxic mindset, but it's really important sometimes. And I'm trying to condition this with the fact that I'm still learning where the limits lie, but I've spent a long time trying to find them. It really is sometimes about putting yourself outside of your comfort zone. There's a very fine line to be trod, though, between doing yourself harm and being uncomfortable, but mentally you're going to feel better later, and you know you're going to feel better later physically. It's like when your AS is flaring and you know that you should go for a walk because it's good to move, but you know that going for a walk is going to be incredibly painful because you're flaring, but you know it's probably going to help you after. You'll feel better afterwards because, one, you'll have gone for a walk, so you'll feel mentally you managed to do something, and secondly, it may not be like an immediate improvement in your quality of life, but you know it's probably in the longer term going to have been more beneficial to have gone for it than not. And it's the same with taking the victories, like trying to find the small wins in your day-to-day living. And it's really hard to find where that line is, because sometimes it is best to stay at home and just rest. Like there's nothing wrong with it, but it's learning what your body is asking for in those moments, or what your mind needs as well. And I think, unfortunately, it just there's no shortcut to it. I wish there was. Like I really do wish there was a shortcut to tell people how that feels and when to take, you know, the step forward and when to rest. But it is just about learning your own body, and I think it just comes with time, and that's unfortunate truth of it. No one can tell you when you're feeling good enough to go do X, Y, Z. And I still struggle with this with friends. You know, I'll say that I'm feeling really, really bad and my back is really hurting, and then they'll see me at a climbing gym, you know, 3 hours later, and they're like, "Why are you at a climbing gym if you're feeling bad?" And you go, "Because I know I'm going to feel bad anyway, but this way I'm going to feel bad, but also feel like I haven't lost my day because I'm feeling bad. And I'm doing this on the off chance that I'm going to feel better physically afterwards, you know, having done a little bit of exercise." But it's really hard for people to understand that you can feel like you can't do something, but still have to do something. And I think that's the same with university life, with working life, with like any part of your day-to-day existence. It's a really delicate balance. Yeah.
Yeah, I'd add to that, saying what I have found works for me is I have like, you know, a variety of things I get involved in uni, which have each one has a different level of energy it requires.
Yeah.
So I have at least one thing at different energy level, so that if I am feeling, you know, I'm having a flare up or not feeling good, I can still do one of the activities because it doesn't require much energy. So I can still, like, I'm not totally like stopping everything. So if I had like just one thing I was really involved in, which say I was a sport, like highly involved in it, and then let's say like, oh, I really didn't have that really high level energy that requires, I would have to stop a thing I'm doing. But if I have a variety of different things, then I can keep at least one thing going no matter how I'm feeling, if that makes sense. So like for me, I do some sport, but I also like write for my magazine. So if I don't have the energy to do the sport, I can still do the magazine because it just requires me writing. Like I can do it from my bed, you know. So I still have that, like, I still feel good because I'm doing what I like doing.
Yeah,
if that makes sense. I think that's a good thing to do.
Definitely. It's a bit like I've picked up a slightly old lady hobby of doing embroidery, and it is exactly that. It's like it's very rare that I feel so unwell that I can't do that, and it's nice because it takes your mind off it as well, feels productive, but it's something that you can do even when you're really fatigued or in high pain. So it's good having that variety, definitely.
yeah.
And we've touched a little bit on kind of how you explain Axial SpA to people you're studying with, but it'd be great to get your thoughts on, particularly when you're kind of first at uni and you're meeting a lot of new people. How did you navigate kind of whether you tell people about your condition, maybe to what extent you tell them, what's been helpful? Great to get your thoughts on that.
I've been a little bit. I used to hide it, to be honest, and then I became loud and proud, and I think it made things so much easier. My life so much easier being really open about it. I don't always delve into the intricacies of it. I think it's really hard to explain, and I think it also depends on the relationship that you have with the person that you're telling it about. But I think I just became really open about it, and I kind of stopped being ashamed of the fact that I wasn't feeling good and that I was, you know, 19, first year of uni, 19, 20 years old, like not feeling great and my back hurts and all of this. I kind of just switched off to it, and I said, this is unfortunately my existence. And I think I realized that those who are going to be my friends and understand it are going to be my friends and understand it, and those that have an issue with it or, you know, don't understand it or aren't empathetic to it at a human level are not going to be the people that I'm going to be friends with anyway. And that was the reality of it. And I just gave up trying to pretend that everything was fine all the time. Granted, I still do, because you can't always show it. And I think even for yourself, it's not necessarily good to always be showing it to yourself. But yeah, I kind of just, you know, I'm not going, hi, my name's Max, I suffer from AS, my back really hurts today. But like, it's kind of just, you know, when it comes up, or, you know, for example, you know, you have to cancel on a night out with your friends because you're feeling particularly rubbish after a big work week, and then your back's flaring a little bit, and you're just not in the headspace to be going out and enjoying yourself. I just say, why? You know, my back's not feeling great, I can't do this today. You know, let's go next time when I'm feeling better. And you know, 99 times out of 100, they understand. And I think it does go back to the fact that people are generally kinder than you think they are, and generally want to help more than you think they do. And I think once you kind of have this mentality switch with it, you know, first, second, third year relationships in general become much easier.
Yeah. I mean, I'm still at university. I haven't exactly got it sorted. I mean, I don't, like, first year, I didn't really speak about it because, you know, you don't really know these people, just meeting them and just becoming friends with them. I don't really want to tell them that necessarily straight out of the blue. So yeah, I didn't really speak about it first year. I mean, this year, like, my housemates know because I like keep my drugs in the fridge in the kitchen. I don't have a fridge in my room or anything like I did last year. And I think a couple of my friends know, but I don't talk about it that much. Because I feel like, to an extent, a lot of people are struggling with stuff at uni. So I feel like I don't, like, if I'm tired or I'm fatigued, I don't feel I have to explain it, because even if I didn't have AS, they would understand if I'm tired, because uni's just exhausting anyways. So I mean, I don't know if that's the right approach to go to it. I don't feel like I need to say anything unless something, I really couldn't do something. But you know, if I couldn't do a night out, I could just say I'm tired, because to be fair, the other people would be like, okay, fair enough, you know, we're all exhausted. Like, I don't have to say anything. So I mean, still working on that. But if I do feel really bad, I probably will FaceTime my friends, like, who do know about it, or my family, or yeah, I haven't really got that sorted. Yeah, it's hard to do.
I don't think there's a rule for it. I think that's the thing. Like, it's just, you know, I'm very loud anyway as a person, personality and voice wise. So like for me, that was my more natural way of displaying it, or like explaining it. And I, you know, for me, it's very natural for me to talk about AS. I think, you know, I've made it quite a large part of my existence now. I've been very fortunate to talk at a variety of events on it. And like, you know, if people want to know I have AS, it's very easy to find that I have AS. So for me, it's not something that I'm ashamed of. And it's not about being ashamed. It's just, for me, I find it emotionally easier to have a relationship with someone, whether it be a friend, romantic or parental, if I'm open about that part of my life. For some people, it's almost the opposite. They feel like, you know, it's going to change the dynamic of their relationship with their friends if they're too open about it, because it can present them as being someone who's suffering rather than someone who is their peers. And then you're worried that someone's going to treat you differently as a result. And like, everyone has their own experiences in terms of how they want to present themselves, how they want to be viewed by others, how they will find it easier to have their relationship with someone. You know, is it going to be easier for you if you don't tell everyone? Maybe yes. And in which case, then that's the best approach. And I think it's just learning what is easier for you to maintain these relationships with, you know, your peers, with your housemates, with your tutors, with whoever. And the same applies, like, not every relationship is going to be treated the same. You're not going to tell your university tutor the same level of detail as you're going to tell your parents. And, you know, your friends at university might be in between the two. You know, they're going to know more than your tutors, but less than your parents. And like, and it's learning what level of detail and openness is best to maintain the level of relationship that you're looking to have with that person. And I think I look back at some of my relationships I've had with friends or tutors or romantic or otherwise, and I've definitely over-explained in some and under-explained in others. And I've learned as time has gone on where, you know, that balance point really needs to be. And I think that's the general rule. Like, it sucks, but you're going to tell someone too much one day, and you're going to know that you've told them too much. You're just going to have to, you'll be like, oh, no, I'm not doing that one again. That joke. It's just, it was a bit dark, but yeah, like, you know, and that's how it goes, unfortunately. But I suppose the same applies for life in general. It's just it's just one that you're just going to have forever. So, you know, you might as well explore that level of communication now. Yeah, just my 2 cents.
I can definitely relate to that, because I mean, when I was studying, I was on a very small course, and so we're all very close, and so everyone kind of knew that I had it, like, because I got the symptoms while I was studying. So they kind of saw me go through that diagnosis phase. So I didn't really have a choice, but everyone knew. But it changed some of the relationships. So that there'd be some people that I knew, I'd go to them if I don't want to think about my condition, if I just want to go and have a night out or have a movie night, not talk about it. I'd have people that I knew would be great for that. I had some people who I knew, I can have a little rant about how fatigued I am, how annoying it is. You know, it kind of, different people were really good for different things as well. So I think that you kind of learn that over time as well. Although I definitely did some oversharing, like when I look back at my ranty Facebook statuses and things. So, but I think that comes with having a new condition.
Growing up. It just comes to growing up. Like, that's
teenager.
Yeah.
I think. No, definitely. I think the reason why I didn't share it much in first year is because I was kind of assessing who I could say what to, like, in my brain. Now that, you know, I've got my friends in second year, and I'll be like, okay, so like, Now, who would I, if I, want to speak to someone about this, I mean, like, now I know who I can speak to and who not to speak to. I didn't think I wanted to burn bridges too early on. People, like, telling people stuff that, like, that wasn't their level, like they couldn't handle or something.
Yeah. Makes sense.
Yeah, just 19-year-old me, I guess, is what I thought, really. Yeah.
Yeah. That has been so helpful. I'm aware of the time. It has absolutely flown by. So yeah, thank you guys so much for chatting with me this evening, especially about something that, it is personal to you guys as well. So I really appreciate you sharing your experiences and your advice. I think it's been really helpful for everyone who's joining us. I'll have a quick scan through the questions and see if we've got any that we need to answer live, because there are some that I know that I can definitely share some resources with afterwards. We have got a question from Tim asking about whether Axial SpA has affected your choice of career, because uni being a time that we sort of decide what we're going to be doing. So if it's kind of ruled anything in or out for you guys, or Emma, I don't know if that might be a little bit early in your studies to be asking that.
Well, actually, not too early, I wouldn't say. Yeah, so I mean, for me, I go to, like, it's everyone, like, this uni is, people work very hard. Like, I mean, obviously everyone works hard at every uni, but they really pressurize you, because I'm on management. I don't know if I said that earlier. They really pressure you into, an investment banking, big corporate London pathway, and everyone seems to do that, which obviously, good for them. But it's like, there's no real support if you don't want to do that necessarily. I mean, there is, but I spoke to my tutor about it, saying how I was like to, go into something a bit less, like, not pressuring, but the hours they have to do big corporate stuff in London where they do up to like 90 hours a week. I was like, that's not going to work for me. Like, I know it's not. And he was like, yeah, we don't really have much of that here. So it has really made me think about what I want to do, like coming into uni, or like when I was in A-levels, I was like, I want to, go into big corporate things, like that's sort of where I thought I was going to go. And then, realizing, how I've turned out and how things are like, that's not really gonna work as much for me as I thought it would. Which, isn't necessarily bad. It's made me think about other things I want to do, which is actually, like, I found some other things I would like to do, but it's definitely changed since I've, realized how things work for me and, stuff like that. So it's a bit different, very different, to be fair, because everyone comes, because I go to University of Bath and everyone goes straight into, literally everyone goes into corporate. So it's just quite, yeah, it's quite interesting, but no, things have changed a lot.
I think, I mean, I'm self-employed, so I think it very much did dictate the life. I mean, I didn't make it easy. I tried to be a professional athlete for a bit. I had my pro license as a half Ironman triathlete. Whether AS ruined that for me, but it was very much the reason why I think I got there in the first place, because I felt like I had a point to prove. But that was never a sustainable career path for me. It's hard enough if you're healthy, let alone if you have AS, to be training 20, 30, 40 hours a week. But I think it did impact my choices. I did the bar course, and while that was incredibly tough to do, I think the rewards in terms of self-employed life and having full control over your working, I say full control, you're still at the mercy of your clients, but kind of, having that flexibility that if you're not feeling great, you don't need to go into an office and you don't have to explain it to someone. And, obviously there are caveats to this in terms of court appearances or whatever, but it was very motivating to me to have that self-employed life. And I took some advice from my dad at the time when I was younger, because I really was wanting to go full in on the sports career. And fortunately, he spoke some sense into me, and he said, you have to be realistic with yourself. Your health is not going to be forever, at that level, and it's not forever for anyone. So it's not, just to do with you, but you're going to have a shorter timeline than most people. So he's like, go for it if you want to do it, but please have something as a backup for when that will inevitably have to come to an end, because, your body is not going to be cooperating with you at that level all the time. But have something that you can challenge yourself with mentally, that that you can still have the sense of personal and professional development in. And this is kind of how I ended up after my first degree, kind of doing the law conversion and the bar course. And that kind of, it did influence, you know, I wanted that life anyway, but I think the AS side of it really did make that a much easier decision. And I did try corporate life for a little bit. I worked at one of the big four. Wasn't for me. And it's not even the hours. It was just the kind of corporate structure in terms of accountability and explaining to someone when you're not feeling sick and having to get signed off and all of this stuff. I just couldn't, you know, AS is so unpredictable with your health that you can't, you know, you don't know how long you're going to be off for, and you don't know how you're going to feel, and you don't know when you're going to be back in the office. And it's just, you know, if they don't have the flexibility that my health required, then I wasn't particularly interested in working there. So that's kind of how I ended up in the kind of work that I'm doing now. So I think it definitely did. And it did rule out certain career options. You know, I'm never going to be a tradesman, for example. You know, a sparky or a plaster, my back would just you know, gone. So yeah. So I think it definitely did. But I think, you know, I know some people who are very successful in corporates who have got AS. I know people who have done, you know, their PhDs in, you know, STEM subjects and are working as research scientists, and they have AS as well. So I think it really does come down to kind of your own tolerances and what you need particularly to manage your condition. So it doesn't necessarily need to make it more complicated. It just probably makes you more aware of what may work for you. And I think it kind of sharpens your mind as to the direction that you want to be going.
Yeah, I'll add that quickly. So in my gap year, I ended up working for corporate for a year full time, an internship in London. And I think that was the major, you know, I don't think this is going to work for me, just for myself. I mean, obviously it's may change in the future, considering that I had that job at like 3 months after I got diagnosed. That definitely was a hard period of figuring out what does work for me. So if that might change, but I think at that point, just for me, it wasn't really working. And I'm really glad I actually had that opportunity, even if, you know, I've realized I didn't necessarily enjoy it much, because it's kind of given me, like, you know, more of a focus of deciding, now I know what works for me, what doesn't, what can I do in the future that incorporates what works for me. So although it, you know, it was a year contract and I couldn't just leave, even though I was struggling, I'm very, you know, very glad I had that. And I think the more I put myself in opportunities, like situations where I, you know, maybe uncomfortable, I think it, you know, will help me figure out what works for me, which I think will benefit me, because I feel like unless I fully exhaust my options to see what works for me, I feel like I could be stuck in something that, you know, actually might not work for me. And I think that'd be very bad for myself. I was in a career for about 20 years that actually I just wasn't amazing. I just didn't try other paths, really. Yeah,
that's really helpful, definitely. I'll just have a quick look at any other questions. I know we've had a question from someone about their daughter who's a walking aid. We have got some blog posts that we wrote about that, and I would also really recommend, there's some really great social media sort of communities and different people that you can follow online as well. So you can check out the hashtag Babe with a Mobility Aid, and they've got some really great posts that can really help you feel less alone with that as well. So I definitely recommend getting her to check those out. But you can always get in contact with me, drop me an email, zoe@nass.co.uk, and I can share the blog post and everything as well. So yeah, it's well worth looking at. Max, I don't know if you spotted anything on Instagram that we need to cover, or if I think we've covered everything I've seen.
Everything, yeah. For now.
Okay, brilliant.
Yeah. If anyone has, feel free to DM me as well. They are always open.
Brilliant, thank you. Well, thank you both again so much. It's been fantastic, and I'm aware we've run a little bit longer than intended, but it's been such a good conversation. I didn't want to cut it short, so thank you both so much. And thank you everyone for joining us live, and also if you're joining us on catch up as well. So I'll let you know that our next live session is going to be on Wednesday the 10th of April at 1 p.m, and I'm going to be chatting about traveling with Axial SpA, including flying as well, because I know that's something we've had quite a lot of questions about recently. I think everyone's sort of booking their summer holidays now. We're all fed up of winter, so so hopefully you'll come join me on Wednesday the 10th of April at lunchtime. But as always, it will stay recorded as well. So thank you again both so much, and thank you everyone for joining us, and hopefully see you next time.
thank you very much for having us.
Thank you.
Great.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Have a good evening, everyone. I'm aware of the time as well. Just clocked it.
Take
Longer than I thought.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks.